I use 3 words to describe the court system: endless, exhausting, and expensive. It doesn't only impact the people or the litigants, it could impact their families. The little boy looks up at me, and he had this angelic face, and he said to me, "I hate my father."
I sat at a deposition for 8 hours. They were fighting about bed sheets, spoons, and who gets this, the pots, everything. Nobody mentioned the kids. Nobody. Mom didn't, dad did not. They had 2 kids, 2 and 4. Finally, I said, what about the kids?
And just one day, fine, and the next day we hear that he took his life. And there are no do-overs.
I was the person who studied for the bar for 12 hours. I did not eat. I barely slept because in my mind, I said, that's what I had to do. And I didn't pass the bar the first time, the second time, until somebody said, hey, what is it that you do? Hi, everyone. It's Winnie Jean-Pierre. Welcome to Lawyers Have Souls 2. We have a very, very special guest. I am so honored. I mean, when this person agreed to be on the podcast, I was literally on the floor, super excited. And we just had a conversation. Our birthday is only 4 days apart. I mean, hello. Anyways, we have this wonderful person on the podcast today. We are going to talk about a very serious subject, something dear to my heart. We are talking about mental health. And I think this is the time where you kind of just grab everybody and have, children and adults, just have them come a little closer to listen. I think everyone is going to benefit from this conversation today. She is a former circuit judge, and her name is Sarah Zabel. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I am so honored. So I don't introduce my guests anymore. I think it's better for them to introduce themselves. So please tell us who you are.
Absolutely. My name is Sarah Zabel, and I'm from South Florida. And as mentioned, I'm a retired circuit court judge. Was on the bench for nearly 16 years, and now I have my own alternative dispute resolution practice, Maze Resolutions, and trying to help people with conflict.
Yes, you cannot forget about the children. Always, always. Thank you so much. So what is it that you do now at Maze Resolution?
Sure. So as I think you have the name Maze, so I'm a big acronym person. So Maze, M stands for mediation, and I mediate statewide. It's a full service statewide dispute resolution practice. We mediate pre-suit, in litigation, state and federal cases, all different types of disputes. A is for arbitration because I also am a private arbitrator. Z for Zabel, E for N. As you can see, the maze to help everyone either get out of the maze of the court system or never even enter the maze of the court system. So I have a team. I've built a team of, we're just about to onboard our 8th neutral. We're an all-female team of neutrals. And we mediate all different types of disputes, anywhere from family disputes, keeping, of course, families out of the court system, because now I was on the civil bench and also a family court judge. So certainly that's important to me. Employment disputes, construction, commercial contract disputes, personal injury. So all different types of disputes.
I love how you put it all together. This is beautiful. I am a big fan of, just mediation, because I think sometimes it could just be easily resolved through mediation, 99% of the time. I mean, if people would just sit down and say, hey, what are we doing? Let's just fix this, right? But unfortunately, I think, as a lawyer, sometimes we are guilty of that, not, encouraging our clients to go that way. It's safe talking about mental health. It save a lot. It save a lot when it comes to mental health. Just not having to to go through the court system because it can be pretty tough sometimes on all parties, to be honest.
I agree with you. I mean, I use three words to describe the court system, and I say it with deference because I have a lot of deference to those who work in the court system who make difficult decisions every day. But there's three words: endless, exhausting, and expensive. And endless because of that roller coaster, and it doesn't only impact the people in who are the litigants; it can impact their families, and just being in limbo. Again, the mental health part of it, exhausting, how it could impact your daily life, your jobs, your family, and expensive because cost of being in the court system sometimes can take a life of its own and even be more expensive than the lawsuit itself, and expensive because of time. And I use this as not only for the civil disputes, but for family, because children don't stay the same age. They grow up. And 2 years later, you're still in the court system. Your child now is, 2 years older. And so what do you want to do? Do you want to use your resources and time, for your child or your children, or do you want to still be in the court system?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And I think, especially now, I am a mom too. I have a 13-year-old. She's going on 20. Um, and I had my daughter when I was in college, and I went to grad school, got two masters, and I went to law school. It was a long journey. And what I often tell people is you don't have, like, you lose it, you don't get it back. Um, you lose a game, you lose a dance rehearsal, it's not coming back. And I've been trying to make up, I've been in the makeup process for the longest. So whenever I talk to people, I always tell them, I said, whenever you can save time, um, just do it. It's worth it.
Oh, I echo everything you just said. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's dive into a little bit about your legal journey. So tell us how you started.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned, and I applaud you for your own journey, and just and everything you've done and what you've accomplished. So I'm just going to give you the Reader's Digest version of mine. So I graduated. I went to Florida State. I graduated in communications, and so I went. I worked in the real world for several years, and and then I decided, I think I always thought I wanted to go to law school. I just wasn't ready to make that commitment, financial commitment. And I had, and when I decided to go to law school, I applied to Nova and went there. And that's when I met my husband, and who's a builder. So he thinks he's a lawyer. He's not, but maybe a de facto lawyer. But long story short, I my I wanted to go into entertainment law. I thought we were going to move to New York. We got married while I was still in law school. Long story short, I got pregnant with my oldest son, who's now 31, and I was almost 8 months pregnant when I took the bar. So, and so, like in life, you make sacrifices. And so I had to put what I wanted on the back burner. My husband he's from Montreal, and he relocated to South Florida to marry me. And so he was building his career as a GC and taking the exam. So I was offered a job at the state attorney's office at child support enforcement. And I took the job there, and then that all roads lead to my pivot, because when I started working there, I did the 180 and fell in love with public service. And that's when I started thinking about my pathway to becoming a judge.
Nice, nice. Um, we are going to talk about mental health today. So let's start with you working in the department dealing with child support. How was that?
It was it was sad on some days because to my core, first to my core, I hate injustice. But when the mothers, and it was usually mothers, maybe things have changed now. More it's maybe there's more of a balance, but for the most part, mothers, if there was a contempt proceeding and the father did not pay child support, the mothers would come to court. And then, but what I hated was when the mothers brought their children to court. Uh,
Oh.
and, and don't, you shouldn't dangle the carrot over the head. A child, if you can't hold back child support if the parent is not paying, a parent should pay child support, but the other parent should not hold back visitation just because that parent is paying child support. And I'm just gonna say a quick memory. And don't get me wrong, I loved what I was doing because I felt I was doing a service to the community, helping people and children collect child support. I even created this program in order to collect child support. So every single day going into court and doing what I was doing, I felt like I was serving the greater good. But there was the other side of it too, and I'm just going to say a quick memory. This is probably 32, I still now over 32 years as a lawyer, but so maybe this was 30, maybe it happened 31 years ago, but it was a long time ago. And how it's interesting how certain memories, even through everything everybody goes through in life, sometimes just some memories really stay with you. I remember I was interviewing the mother it was on a contempt proceeding, and she brought her little boy. He must have been 7, 8 years old. He looks me, and I'm not condoning not paying child support. Don't get me wrong. That's, it's a different conversation. But the little boy looks up at me and he had this angelic face and he said to me, it was just such a visceral moment. He said to me, I hate my father. And I thought to myself, I could only imagine what the mother was saying about the father to the child, which of course I'd seen countless times. And when I was a family court judge, just how the parents would use, I say it's the Gumby effect, how the parents would use the child, and pull them apart, and that toxic disparagement of the other parent is just so wrong on so many levels. So it's a memory that, will stay with me.
Yeah, funny story. So, when I started law school, I told my mom I was going to be a criminal defense attorney, and she said, "You don't have it in you." And I said, "Well, I've done a lot of things. I can do this." And she said, "It's not about you being smart. It's just you don't have that in you." She's like, "I don't see you doing that." So, long story short, she was right. So I said, "Well, family law. I can do family law. It's, I remember I worked at a firm for a very short time because I just knew it wasn't for me. I sat at a deposition for 8 hours. They were fighting about everything. Nobody mentioned the kids. Nobody. Mom didn't. Dad did not. They had two kids, 2 and 4, and they were fighting about, bed sheets and spoons and who gets this, the pots, everything. And it was a test because, I can see the other attorneys going to lunch. In this big conference room, it's a glass door. Everybody's going to lunch. Everybody's looking at me and like, okay, 1 hour went by, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hours. I thought I was doing a good job. I said, well, I'm just going to let them talk it out. And then eventually, like, we'll get to something. So comes hour 8. I have a headache. I'm frustrated. I'm upset. I'm thinking about the kids. Every time I'm like, okay, somebody's going to say it. They don't. They don't say it. So finally I say, what about the kids? I got extremely upset and I'm the nicest person ever. And they got quiet like children. Like, how you catch your kids doing something they're not supposed to be doing. And they're like, oh. And they're like, we're sorry. And I said, are you guys serious? 8 hours? And you're just talking about all of these things that happen. And again, I understand everybody's hurt, but I said, I can't do this. I said, I cannot. That's when I know, I said, this is not for me. So I think ultimately, the kids, they are the one that loses. Like they don't, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, and I tell parents this who are divorcing. You may be married as may be divorcing as a couple, but you'll always be married as parents. And I mean, it's sometimes they like your story. It just they're so they're so in their own bubble because of the hurt and wire, especially the longer marriages and, one person maybe, and they can't see the forest before the trees and they're using their children as leverage. So, kudos to you that you said, but what about the children? I mean, it's really something else. And it's just so sad.
Yeah, yeah. And so let's dive into the questions. What does mental health mean to you, professionally and personally?
No, well, certainly, when as we were talking a little bit before this aired, is that to me, physical health, very important, equally important is mental health. And I was just appointed to the standing committee with the Florida Bar for mental health and wellness. So I'm really looking forward to being part of that. So mental health. Oh, I've seen the impact of someone who is spiraling downward with mental health, and how it affects someone. I do have a very I someone who was a legal giant of our community who you couldn't tell everything was fine. I mean, he was and just one day fine, and the next day we hear that he took his life, and there are no do-overs. So I think mental health so important to me, especially with our young people, our law students, and how and don't get me wrong, Zoom has been great. It's been a great platform for my practice, but I think we could touch on social media, but the idea of the disconnect and not really being, in person, meeting people and being isolated. And that's concerning to me as far as mental health, for our young people, because they're not actually being out there in the world. And maybe it's more geared towards the legal profession, but I think that is a general statement.
Actually, I don't think it's a general statement. I think that we've just been in, and that's in every aspect, dating, friendship, just professionally. Um, some people try more than others. Work wise, a lot of companies try to really kind of create that in person, even if they are working virtually. But the world is shifting. It is shifting, and I think we get very comfortable in this virtual space. You think you know what somebody is going through because they post on social media every day. This is what I'm eating. This is where I'm going. So in your mind, you assume that, okay, I know what's going on with this person. I mean, I think I'm kind of guilty of that. But every once in a while, I have to take a step back and say, well, I don't post my entire life on social media, especially if I'm going through something. So I can't expect to know what this person is going through based on what I'm seeing. At least that's the conversation that I have with my lawyer friends specifically. I usually check in. I have a so that's a tip. Anybody can use it if it works for you. So I have a list like where I'll send like it has like different emojis, and I would say, hey, where are you today? Or, sad face, happy face, angry face. And then if I get a sad face or not a happy face, then I would pick up the phone and call. Because again, you can text somebody every day and you think you know how they're doing. But when you pick up the phone, if it's a friend, if something is wrong, I think you can kind of sense that better than, the text and that. So I think it's super important. And, everybody say, we are busy, we're busy, we're busy, we're busy. It's 5 minutes, literally.
That's so well said. I agree with you. And again, people mask, whether they're okay. And but like you said, even, whoever it is, if it's a friend or maybe opposing counsel, and something's just a little off, take a moment and say, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay?" They may not want to share with you, but but by saying that to the other person, again, I think all roads lead to kindness. We're such a polarized world and with the virtual and the social media, but when you think someone is just not themselves or you just want to check in with them, are you okay?
Yeah, and it sounds like such a simple word sentence. It's actually very powerful. I've gotten a few, I'm thinking of somebody and I call and say, "Are you okay?" And, they go silent for a moment, and then it's either they are crying, yelling, or they would say, "Thank you for asking me that. No one asked me if I've been walking around carrying this weight and no one asked me if I'm okay." And I think that's also good. You often hear check on your strong friends, especially the person that's doing it all, that's taking care of everybody, whether it's family. If you have any friends that have like family, if, parents that are elderly, if they have sick parents, sick children, if they are taking care of, children with disabilities, like, and they seem like they're doing it well. You're like, oh, she's so amazing. Like, she's a mom. She has this great career. Those are the ones that I really, really emphasize on checking on.
I so agree with you. And and I say this to my kids, oh, look at what they have and all that. I said, you don't know what's going on in someone's home.
You can't possibly know.
Like you said, somebody you may think, oh, wow, that person is so put together. They have it all. They're doing, X, Y, and Z. And then the next minute you hear, God forbid, but that everything's fallen apart. And you're like, wow, I just didn't see, wow, I'm shocked. I'm like, don't be shocked.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if we're talking about celebrities, it's always like the super happy, bubbly ones. Yeah, and that's really when I tell people, check on your friends, check on your colleague, just check on people. It takes 2 seconds. It's not, it may not mean anything to you, but it could mean the world to them. Now, as a former judge, you get to hear a lot of stuff and see a lot of things. Did you ever experience any secondary trauma from hearing difficult cases?
Certainly, I would say when I first started out on the bench, I was in dependency.
Mm.
And I mean, everywhere I was in criminal for a few years, I was in civil for several years, and then family. So, I mean, criminal, of course, is very difficult um, because just, you don't want somebody who's actually innocent being convicted. And then children, juveniles who are direct filed to adult court.
Yeah.
Um, don't get me started on, that's another conversation, and how they're treated and whether judges should have more discretion, and that should, but, having the opportunity to give juvenile sanctions, but I think, those moments, dependency court, when you had children who were taken away from their parents for good reasons, for abuse, abandonment, neglect, and that the parents could not take care of that child. And so that child now goes into the foster care system, that should be, and respectfully to the system itself, because they work hard, and I understand that, but, they take these children in, they're supposed to be better parents than the actual parents themselves. So I think I mean, many cases affected me, especially the older children in foster care, who were graduating. I mean, I thank God every day I had my parents who, even at 18, were there for me. I had that safety net. A lot of these children that graduate from foster care, you know, what do they have? Okay, some of them have resources, but what do they have? Do they have an opportunity? That's why, of course, mentorship is very important to me. But so I think, for me, going home and thinking about those children, what's going to happen to them. And I think, and one child in particular that just, I mean, I don't know, second degree trauma, but it really, I mean, several cases I can mention. One, a little girl, and this other young man who had cerebral palsy. And he was confined to a wheelchair. And my heart my heart went out to him. And if I could have taken him home, I would have. But the department, and again, I'm not um, disparaging the department, because they have, there's a lot that's put on them, and they do their best. But they would not give this boy, he was getting older, so his body was changing, but he had to wait to be approved for Medicare, in order to get a new wheelchair.
Oh my.
So I can't imagine me going home and telling my husband, I'm like, I'm beside myself. It was just, I was eating at me. I mean, did it give me sleepless nights? Yes. I had to bring DC, and I did not want to do this. And that's it. They teach you this at New Judges School. Do not try, avoid holding attorneys in contempt. And I think you can get my vibe. I'm a pretty laid back person and even keel, but I was really upset. I brought DC in, I brought them in every single day. And I had to say, I'm going to fine you. I'm going to fine you every single day until you get this boy a new wheelchair. Why did I have to do that? Why did I have to do that? And so that, certainly, for me, that was certain, I don't know, traumatic per se, but it really impacted me, because I went home, and my children, and they had a family, and I could get the resources, and I felt helpless. I felt helpless, and it was horrible.
Yeah. What coping mechanism did you use to deal with, you know, your mental health?
My family, um, I think, they were the love of my family. I'm also a very spiritual person. I think, that also helps me, and my faith helps me. Certainly going to the gym helps. I'm a avid reader, so, and being involved in different activities. I have to sit on my hands not to volunteer for things, because I was very involved with the Miami-Dade, MD Fall, with Miami-Dade Florida Association of Women Lawyers. So when I was practicing, I was treasurer, secretary, president-elect, and then president. And then even on the bench, I was very involved with different things. I like being involved. I'm a mentor for organization called Women of Tomorrow. It's a organization that mentors, it's a at-risk girls, high school girls, and it's an incredible organization. So I think for me, for my own mental health, besides, of course, my family, um, just my personal faith. Also traveling. I like to travel, certainly. And but yeah, I like shopping, so that's another part of it. But yeah, I think just to pinpoint, my faith and my family and just you know, taking one day at a time and remembering to breathe and to, and to know at the end of the day, like I tell anyone that I'm young, our young people, or even my children, I always say you can't control what other people say or do, but you can control who you are as a person. And I live by that.
Yeah. So we know the legal profession is one that is definitely focused on being tough and resilient. Um, what advice do you have for anyone entering this profession in terms of you have to be tough all the time? You have to be tough. You can't be weak. What is your advice for them?
Yeah, having a thick skin, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Don't let them see you sweat.
Well, my son is a lawyer. He's now and just starting his 6th year. So uh that's a great question. I don't, what does that mean being tough, right? I just think you have to be true to yourself. Um, I think that's true in life. Don't take on the persona of somebody else. If you're going to be a trial lawyer, go watch another trial lawyer that you admire, be that sponge. Whatever career path whatever, area you want to pursue, um, you know, watch that person, but don't imitate that person. Because when I first went on the bench, there were a lot of judges that I respected and admired, but their personality was not my personality. And I had to deal with some like major cases. I had some major publicity cases, high profile cases that I had to deal with, a lot of media attention. And I think my personal, being calm and handling it. I think that helped me. I just, I had to be true to myself. And that's what, to answer your question, I would say, have grit, have that thick skin, but don't change who you are, because if you pretend you're someone you're not, I think it can backfire too.
For a very short time. And I said, you know what? I This is just who I am. I think that that's my greatest weapon. There's just one me. And I think that that's where you find strength. I'm big on, just like you, my faith. I do not do anything that, if it's in my core that I feel like, hey, this is not right, then that's not something I get involved in. I'm very stern on that. And that has nothing to do with being tough or anything. That's just for me. Um, I think a lot of people just get lost. They just kind of you're looking at the person and you're like, so where is this Winnie that I knew? Where is this person? Again, life changes you, but you definitely don't want to change for the worse. You always want to change for the better. You want to learn from your experiences and take the good out. There's a good in the lesson.
Yeah, no, I am sorry to interrupt. No, absolutely. And I think it, again, it's about the journey and the destination, and it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I think it's important for our lawyers, or anyone really, if you're in a job that's toxic, um, and even if the paycheck is obscene, talking about mental health, you need to leave. It's okay to pivot. It's okay.
Yeah, I agree. Um, do you think the court system provide enough space for mental health awareness?
Great question. I think, and this is not a criticism on the court system. Um, I think, oh, they can always do more. They do try to implement programs, CLE programs for either the judges or the lawyers or the professionals that work in the court system. Is it enough? Probably not, honestly. And again, it's not a criticism. It's just that we get so busy with our lives that our intention is good because we do want to help and make a difference. But then life happens and then just, and it goes by quickly. And then the good that you wanted to do, this program you wanted to do, then it's like 2 months later, 3 months later, and that program was not done. So I think, again, could they do more? Absolutely. And this is true, worldwide, nationwide in our court system, because everybody is affected. If judges, you know, are people that come into the court system, a lot of people that come into the court system have never been in the court system before. So they trust the people who are there, whether it's judges, making sure that they're given their due process, their day in court, to be heard. A lot of people want to be heard. They want to know that their voice was, did you listen to me? I'm telling you this. Did you listen to me? It may not be, you may not get the outcome you want, but did you listen to me? And if lawyers and judges are affected because of mental health, that could affect people whose lives are affected by coming into the court system. So I think 100% we could always do more. Are they doing things as far as CLEs and other programs? Yes, but of course we can always do more.
Yeah, I agree. So, um, we often hear about lawyers struggling with alcohol or drugs. Have you ever noticed mental health struggles amongst attorneys who appear before you?
Yes. And there was, and it was, and I'm not going to say anything specific or which division I was in, but I could see this attorney really going downhill. You could tell the difference. And
Hmm.
I don't know what was happening. Maybe it was family issues. Maybe they were going through a divorce. I don't, it wasn't, sometimes you have to be careful about crossing that line. I still think it's okay to say, are you okay? But you also have to be careful because that lawyer's client could be with them. And then the judge says, can you imagine the judge saying, are you okay? And then the client goes to my lawyer who's representing me.
Why are you asking?
Yes, just to answer your question, you could see it. And, if it wasn't, if it was a big issue, we are mandatory reporters, certainly. If it's affecting their ability to practice, certainly you're a mandatory reporter. I would, I never wanted to report a lawyer to anyone. If I saw somebody who needed help or was going through a difficult time, I would speak to them out of the presence of their client and just say, are you okay? There was one time that I saw somebody who was going through a difficult time in their life. And, but fortunately, this was years ago, but fortunately today they're fine. So,
You mentioned divorce. There's also research that shows that attorneys have higher rates of divorce. Why do you think that is?
I think because of the stress of the practice, and I think it depends what kind of practice.
True.
I mean, if you're, not to say that transactional lawyers or estate planning lawyers or, uh, for example, or lawyers who maybe go into the educational field, maybe becoming a professor, maybe that stress level, not to say that they don't get divorced, they do, but I think the high intensity comes with trial lawyers.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Certainly, whether it's uh, criminal lawyer, or I think trial lawyers, civil trial lawyers, any type of lawyer that handles litigation on a day-to-day basis, that is ratchet up to 11. It's like an extreme, extreme, extreme. And there's so much stress, so much because I'm not so much saying where it's a bench trial, but when you have jury trials, because jury trials, look, reality is weak cases win, strong cases lose. You don't know what six people or how many people in the jury are going to, ultimately decide because we see things through a different lens, right? It's human nature and life lived experience. So, that lawyer who's under so much pressure, and especially I think and I'm just, it's just an opinion. I think our solo practitioners, when solo practitioners don't have that safety net of maybe other colleagues to be there to help them, to step in for them just in case they need it. When you're in a big firm, you have other colleagues that can maybe cover hearings for you. But if you're, under the gun with certain deadlines, and now our rules in Florida, the civil rules have even amped up the pressure more so for our trial lawyers, our civil trial lawyers, making it even more stressful. So I think, yeah, I would say probably our trial lawyers, and then just to add to that, our solo practitioners who are really, really, and they, being a sole practitioner is wonderful. When I left the state attorney's office, I went into my own practice. I loved it. I liked the autonomy of having my own practice. But then there's that other part, just to, circle back to what you said.
Yeah, yes, certainly. Why do you think so many lawyers and judges are still hesitant to talk about mental health?
Honestly, I think it's probably easier to talk about somebody who has breast cancer than it is to speak about someone, or God forbid, or cancer, or just, the C word, cancer, or somebody who is diagnosed with some physical ailment compared to mental health. I don't know if it's, I don't want to use the word shame, but and and the idea of somebody saying, and I think we have to share our own stories, because by sharing our own stories, that just makes us all human.
Yeah.
And then if somebody's going through something, say to them, I went through something, you're not alone. You're not on an island all by yourself. So I think, I don't know, it's a shame, but I think people think that mental health is something that makes someone weak. Compared to somebody who has a physical health issue, uh, by saying you're mentally unstable. How can you function every day? And then how can you be a lawyer? More so than somebody who may have a physical ailment that can, come into court and get more compassion or empathy than somebody who is suffering through mental health. I mean, I'm not a mental health professional, and I'm not, it's just kind of just my own experience. And also, especially being on the family court bench, working with mental health professionals on a day-to-day basis, listening from them and what, I hear from them and just understanding the behind the scenes. So I think people are just afraid to admit or talk about mental health. Again, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And, we need to speak up about it because, again, like I said, and I'm going to use the word suicide, when somebody takes their life, there is no do-over.
Yeah. And one of my favorite word when it comes to mental health is it's okay to not be okay. Like nobody is at 100 every day. Nobody. And then it's also okay to acknowledge that. So for me personally, I'm just a happy, bubbly person. Like everywhere I go, I'm always the happy person. I'm the friendly person. I'm going to make friends before everybody else. That's my personality. And I have this, I'm going to call it a habit. When people ask me, hey, how are you? I'm great. And just recently, I said, you know what? I need to actually tell people how I am. So I would say I'm great. And then I would pause and I would say, actually, I'm not so great today. Actually, I'm feeling whatever today. And therapy has a lot to do with that. In my community, I am from Haiti, so I'm from the island. I came here when I was a teenager, so it's still not a big thing. Therapy is not a something that we do, at least in my community. And but therapy helped a lot. Just use your words, use the different, how are you feeling today? I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever. So I always take a step back, because what that does for me is to make sure I take care of me. If I'm telling everybody I'm okay, I'm just gonna go and go. But the moment that I acknowledge, I said, I actually feel this is not just me being tired, this is just me being anxious, this is me being sad. Okay, let me go. What can I do to be better? Let me go to the gym. Let me go get some ice cream. Let me go for a walk. Let me just take a drive and listen to some music. Sometimes it's let me go shopping. I mean, hey, whatever works for you, right? But I think we just have to know that it's okay. Like I had to tell myself that, and it took me a long time, because there was a time I felt guilty not being okay. I said, I don't have the right to not be okay. Like, I'm here. I have a child that I have to take care of. I'm a single mom. Like, I don't have that luxury. That's what I thought it was. And now I see it completely different.
So true. I mean, it's okay to not be okay, and therapy, self-help, self-care is so important. My just a personal story, when I was pregnant with my youngest, my husband had a catastrophic accident which left him as a paraplegic. And he was in the hospital for several months. So I was taking care of my three babies and being pregnant. I had my own practice, and this was before the bench. And, I had to, uh, I couldn't, self-care was very not as important as it was for myself. I had all these responsibilities on my shoulders and carrying all those responsibilities. And so, and personal, my own personal struggles, I had to put in a box, have time to have a personal struggle because I had to take care of my children and think about my husband and think about what our future is now going to be. Now our life was totally upended. And so fast forward to today, you take lemons and make lemonade, right?
Yeah.
And so to what you said, and I totally agree with you, because people ask, oh, oh, are you okay? I'm okay. But can you imagine if you really stopped for a minute and told that person, no, you know what? I'm not okay. This is what's going on, and really shared and confided with that person. And that's okay too. But I agree with you. I think anything that can help you, whether it's therapy, whether it's exercise, whether it's taking a drive and just sitting on the beach and watching the ocean and breathing in and taking a few minutes, that mindfulness, that self-care, which I learned over the years. I'm not perfect because I still have my own struggles I deal with. And, and attitude is important. Positivity is important, of course. And my husband is amazing. He's got an amazing attitude. But I think that's important. But I'm a worrier at heart. I'm
Me.
like my mother, I worry all the time. My kid, I know, my children are now grown. And so my daughter who lives in New York, she doesn't call me back. I worry. So it's just in me. I worry a lot. So that struggle I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I always try to, stay calm, be positive. And again, I revert back to my one word. It's about being kind.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. If you could redesign the legal profession with mental health in mind, what would you do?
How much time do we have?
I'll tell you one thing. You know how we have we have ethics class in law school. We really focus on how to be ethical. I would definitely, and I'm saying this if there are law firms that are already doing that, kudos to you, but I would definitely have class on mental health while in law school.
Yes, I don't think it should just, I think if it's going to be a class, it should be a mandatory class for the whole school because they offer classes that you don't have to take. I mean, but as you just said, you have to take professionalism, right? But they should also, I personally, not to plug what I do as a profession, I think they should teach alternative dispute resolution because resolving conflict reduces mental health issues too for lawyers and for their clients, right? So so I think if they're going to do a mental health class, where I do believe they should bring in not just, a lawyer teaching it. I think they should have mental health professionals come in and not only teach to the students, but make it interactive.
Yes.
Make it interactive and make it mandatory. I think, again, on my soapbox, I think public speaking should be mandatory for every single high school student because I think communication also and being comfortable with yourself and talking to other people too. Again, it's all inextricably intertwined with mental health. So being able to speak, public speaking is the greatest fear of all. So I think I agree with you. They should have mental health in every single law school. They should mental health classes, not just clinics. It should be a mandatory class for every single law student, and it should be taught by mental health professionals.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely agree. I think again, so many for me, um, and everybody, what I like about law school is I think when I went to law school, one of the things that surprised me was my class. We started with 90, obviously. I won't tell you how many of us graduated, but we started with 90, and we had very, very, very young, people that were barely, 20. And then we had people that were 40s and 50s. And, some people it was their third career. Some people it was their first career. Some people had already married and divorced and have grown kids and decided to step in. So that was interesting to me. But what I did realize is as we exit law school, we all were kind of like, okay, so what now? Because a lot of things were not taught in law school. You know, like when you go out in the real world, the stress, how do you deal with that? Talking about burnout. A lot of lawyers just, work long and long hours and there's no balance. And, nobody knows. You're calling people and they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, this is what we do. This is just normal. So I think that puts a lot of stress on people.
So true. I think burnout for lawyers, there's burnout for judges. And I've seen judges who have been on the bench for many years, and you could see the difference. I know myself, but I also know some friends of mine who have now retired, who I can see the difference in their face. You could, that what a difference from the way they were when they were on the bench dealing with all those issues every single day, whether it's somebody losing their home through foreclosure or somebody losing their child or whatever, or cussing or whatever it was. Now that they're off the bench and you see them, you could see their whole face and how it's changed. So it really is that burnout. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So we have maybe two more questions left. Now that you are no longer on the bench, how has your relationship been with your own mental health?
Much better.
Happy to hear.
Although I'm a worrywart at heart, so certainly as a mother, that struggle worrying about my children, and the older your children are, when they marry, you still worry. But yeah, I think so. I I think we make decisions every day, small decisions, big decisions. I think when you evaluate making that certain decision and you struggle making that decision, is difficult, but once you make the decision, it's easy. So when I decided it was the right time for me to retire, uh, that thinking things through. But once I made the decision, it was an easy decision. And now, 7 years later, I know I made the right decision because being able to have autonomy, again, deference to all those who are on the bench, colleagues who are still there, great, and what they do every day. But for me, I'm grateful I made the decision that I did because, as you said, my mental health and what I'm able to do. And I'm just going to give you an example. My first mediation was an all-day divorce with small children, hours and hours. And I just did not want to let go. Did not want to let go. And long story short, I settled it and I was able to keep those children out of the court system. That was my mental health moment that I knew for me, the journey was a good one. And and having autonomy is wonderful. So, and being able to, do things with my family that maybe I wasn't able to do, on the bench. And I also have my voice back. And I don't have those restrictions as I did when I was on the bench. I'm still careful, of course, but, I'm careful on the content I put out, but yeah, that was just a long story short answer.
Yeah, actually, I love that answer. Now, if you could talk to one particular attorney or judge that is going through it right now, whatever it is that they're going through, what would you say to them?
Call me.
I like that. Wow. That was I typically when I ask a question, I kind of guess in my head like what are they going to say? I did not expect that answer. It is all it's I think it's the greatest thing that you can have. Some people don't have anyone to call. Some people just don't have that.
Right. I do know that.
Yeah, some people just don't have that. And I always it always surprises me whenever I talk to somebody and they would say I have nobody. And I would say, "What do you mean? You have nobody?" And I've heard that a few times. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I agree with you. We have to be a village for us, and knowing that if you feel, and this is, I say this to law students, a lot of law students feel like they're isolated, like, oh, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get through this. You're going to get through this. You're not alone. We were there and we're here to help. Please reach out. But, and I freely give out my cell phone number because I really, and I mean it, and I'm sincere when I say it. If someone if someone wants to talk to me confidential, confidential, I think I need my coffee. Uh, in a private, forum, I will give them that safe space and I'll tell them if they want to speak to me and they want to leave it confidential, please reach out. Please reach out and we can talk things through. I don't want you to not, or if it's not me, then reach out to someone else. If you don't feel comfortable talking to me, I understand. Maybe it's too private or something, but if there's any issue that you're going through or you're struggling with, you have this safe haven with me. And I think that for the legal community, I think it's so important. And unfortunately, that's not always the case, but I think we, we as a community, need to step up and make sure that, because I think we have a responsibility, right? And what better responsibility is it to help somebody who's in crisis?
Wow. I mean, this just really touched me. Just call me. I love that. I love that. And also, this was not even in my line of questions, but I'm going to ask because that is something that whenever I talk to anybody, new attorneys, seasoned attorneys, judges, whoever, I talk about, mentorship. And what I hear often is that people say, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. And I tell them, I said, it doesn't have to be something big. You don't have to, have a class or dedicate 20 hours a week to do that. And I use myself as an example. I mentor law students specifically that are studying for the bar because when I studied for the bar, I went through a lot. And I was just the type of person I didn't know. It's something simple as, like the people who call me, they really ask me questions like, Winnie, I study 12 hours a day and I don't take breaks. Like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And it's something simple as like, you need to take break, you need to eat, you need to shower, you need to sleep. And I was surprised that I didn't know that because I was that person. I was the person who studied for the bar for 12 hours. I did not eat. I barely slept because in my mind, I said, that's what I had to do, right? And I didn't pass the bar the first time, the second time, until somebody said, hey, what is it that you're doing? Because you graduated top of your class, there's something that you're doing. And I told them, I said, I just study all day. And they said, you don't take breaks, you don't go for walks, you don't work out. I said, no, all I do is study. So it could be something as simple as mentoring. There's different levels to it. So I tell people just help where you can. It doesn't necessarily have to be, where you have to spend hours and hours and hours. And also, some people say, well, I really don't have any time, Winnie. Like, I have zero time. I said, there's other ways to help. Like, I would buy lunch for people that are studying for the bar. I would buy lunch for people when they go take the bar. And again, I did that because I've seen people where they say, well, we know it's expensive. We know the whole process, right? And I said, there are actually some people, after they pay for the classes, they have no money. They have no support. They have nothing. So I think it's important to kind of tell people, like, just help where you can. And I think what you're doing is just amazing. And what would you add or what advice would you tell people who say, well, I just don't have it in me. I don't have the time to do any type of mentorship. Like, I don't know how to help.
No, and I love what you do, and I applaud you for what you do to help. And so nice about just buying lunch. just one, act of kindness, right? Or so you don't have to mentor the world,
Yeah.
right? But one person, because by helping one person, it's pay it forward, right? It's
Right.
helping one person, you're helping a community and I understand about time. We're all limited in time. There's a window of time in life, blink your eyes and that's how quick life goes. And you're just, oh, I'm just so busy with my own life. But take one, a few minutes just to say, just to give a positive word to somebody. By doing that, that's mentoring.
Yes.
So mentoring isn't just, months and, all of that. Mentoring could be just a few moments by just giving that person that confidence that they know that they can do it, they can get through this. All of that, that's mentoring.
Can you tell us more about the organization that you work with, who they are, how we find them, how can we support?
Absolutely. I'll tell you about Women of Tomorrow. Women of Tomorrow is an organization that was started by Jennifer Volpe. Jennifer Volpe was a news anchor here in South Florida for many years. She started, I think it was 25 years ago, something like that. Anyway, she wanted to start uh, uh, an organization, a mentoring organization for at-risk high school girls. This organization is comprised of working women in all different types of fields, whether lawyers, chefs, news anchors, business women, accountants, doctors, all different types of working women that come together who are assigned to high school and they go in the high school and they mentor these girls. But whatever their journey is, this organization uh, supports these young women because a lot of these women, young girls, don't really have much. And they struggle and they don't have that safety system of a family. Some of them do, some of them don't, but they're at risk. And so mentors come into the high school, they speak to them, they bring in guest speakers. I bring in all different kinds. I would love you to speak to my girls, guests, and just talking about your own life, things like social media, cyberbullying, self-defense, because they're going to graduate high school and then what next? Whether
Yeah.
they decide to go to college or not. So it's a mentoring and it's also they give scholarships to girls too because some of these girls can't even afford to buy a coat if they're going to, let's say, Florida State. It's very cold in Tallahassee, so there's scholarships. So it's a one. I've been involved with them in this organization for almost 20 years, and I'm just really proud to be part of it. I would say for our lawyers out there, our law students to maybe get involved with different bar organizations. Find that I mean, I understand the first year out of law school, you're busy, building your practice. But if there's a voluntary bar organization that speaks to you, maybe get involved with leadership, and that's also good because that also gets you involved with community and connecting with other people too, speaking about mental health. So that I think networking is important, so that even if you decide to open your own shop, is to be involved with other lawyers, so that you have that kind of village for you, for your base. And but for me, you can reach me. I'll give you my email is sz@mazeresolutions.com. And you can go on my website, see what my website, all my neutrals, including myself. And we have a calendar to schedule services. It's mazeresolutions.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions to anyone who may have any questions regarding what I do or any additional questions. And for our legal community, please, if you are interested in becoming a judge, and I said, and I've said this before in my mediation, sometimes a lawyer will talk to me after hopefully we settle and say, one day I want to be a judge. And I give them, I said, you know what, just call me, reach out to me. We can do a Zoom call. I can, I'm happy to give you any feedback that you want, any advice. So if anybody's interested in becoming a judge or running a race, which it's a big deal, but I'm happy to give advice or just wanting, just advice or just any support that you may need in general, please feel free to reach out to me.
Well, that's amazing. Let me first say that I'm not interested in being a judge, but I do appreciate you for all that you do. I think you are doing amazing work in the community. I will publicly say that I am interested in partnering with you in working with Women's of Tomorrow. It is something that I find to be very interesting, and it's in the realms of things that I already do. So I will definitely reach out and partner. And for us, before we conclude, I would like for you to finish the sentence. Lawyers have souls too
because we're human beings and we care and we have empathy for each and every individual that comes into our path.
Thank you so, so much. This was amazing. I really enjoy our conversation. I am actually looking forward to having you back on this platform. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and your expertise, and I will see you soon.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing me on. And I applaud you for everything that you do and what you're doing with this podcast and just you as a person. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. This was a great episode. We have more episode coming soon. Please stay tuned. I'll see you next time.